Good evening, lady and gentlemen. I welcome you to this regularly scheduled Vader City Council meeting on this January 26th evening of 2017, and which I will officially call to order at 6 p.m. And we'll proceed at this moment with our roll call, and would invite our city clerk to conduct that for us.
Okay. Andy Wilson.
He's called and indicated that he's still overcoming the flu affliction that has challenged him for over a week. He's out of the hospital now and is able to he's up and about, barely.
Jason Daly.
Here.
Joe Shy.
Present.
Mike Parsons.
Here.
Ruth Creer.
Ruth did contact us earlier today and apologized, but she's got a family matter that she needed to attend to this evening.
Okay. And Mayor Smith.
Also present. So, obviously, we do have a quorum, so we will proceed by conducting our Pledge of Allegiance. We'll invite all to please rise. Joe, would you do the honors?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We will proceed with our mayor's report. Item number one, you'll note, is a notice of city advertising for engineering services for our transportation infrastructure board street project, which will be the paving in the downtown area. So we're setting that in motion, and that's for your info. So the ball is beginning to roll down the hill on that, and that should be a big event for Vader. Number two, wanted to brief those of you who weren't able to attend our emergency preparedness event that the council had approved for last Thursday, the 19th. It happened, and we had about 12 people there, several of whom lived outside the city limits of Vader. But Dossie Wilson, who made a presentation to the council, came and did what she said she was going to do. She had a goodly number of packets that she handed out to everybody, and showed a video about the Cascadia fault threat that exists in this neck of the woods, actually from southern Canada to northern California, and then encouraged all present to read the packets and talk to their neighbors and consider combining or joining with your neighbors in emergency response preparedness. And ideally there would be another meeting in the future in which the neighbors would come and you make plans and such, but right now I'm not sure that there was a lot of energy that was generated in that meeting, but what did emerge was a sense that we should probably have a subsequent meeting which was not geared so much for the planning, the neighborhood planning and mapping, but another more emphatic call for public attendance or participation in an emergency preparedness presentation that shows you what you should do and how you should prepare. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And I mentioned that, as it turns out, the city of Vader, in our urban growth area, has a couple that just moved here from Escondido, California. And she has, in fact, made such a presentation and was incorporated in a large swath of the Escondido, California area, and it's a PowerPoint presentation. And I happen to have seen it, and it's nothing short of extraordinary. And so it lasts about 45 minutes. So I'm not suggesting you do it, but I would support an effort to contact this lady. Her name is Vicki Pryor, and she could come and make a 2-minute presentation if she were willing. she doesn't know anything about this. So I just, my last comment would be that if the council were opposed to it, we could reach out to Mrs. Pryor and see if she'd be willing to come and make a pitch to present that to the residents of Vader. Would you be opposed to that if she came?
Wouldn't be opposed to it.
That would be neat.
Okay, all right. Then that's about it on that particular topic. All right, the council reports. Any thoughts or comments you'd like to bring before the public this time? Okay, hearing none. Then agenda approval for this evening's meeting.
I'll make a motion to accept this city.
I should have mentioned this.
That's all right.
Remind you. Okay.
I'll move to approve the city council meeting agenda for January 26, 2017 with the additional items of number 5 to discuss a park board vacancy and appointment, and item 6 for council to consider resolution 05-2017 regarding a volunteer correction agreement.
Okay, you've heard the motion submitted by Mr. Parsons to approve the agenda with the addition of items number 5 and number 6 as annotated. Do we have a second?
Should we make those, 4?
I said number 5 and number 6.
But we want them before the executive session.
Oh, yeah, good point. Okay, yeah. Contingent approval of number 5 and 6 before, between items 3 and 4. So, yeah.
1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 4.
Yeah, that sounds good. The Vader way.
Oh, God. I can't believe you said that.
Yeah, strike that last time. So, do we have a second for that?
I'll second it.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Daly. All right, any objections? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. Minutes approval for City Council meeting of January 12th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from January 12th of 2017.
Okay, you've heard the motion submitted by Mr. Schy to approve those minutes as written. Have a second.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Mr. Parsons. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Motion is carried. Voucher approval. Await council action. Hope you've had a chance to review those vouchers.
I'll make a motion to approve the vouchers for the end of January 2017 in the amount of $9,914.03 for a January 2017 total of $41,007.93.
Okay. Mr. Schy submitted a motion to approve those voucher expenditures in the amounts noted. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Daly. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? The motion is carried. Now it's our opportunity to hear a special report. Now I'd like to welcome Mr. Eric Martin, the Lewis County Public Works Director, and welcome his associate, Steve Finner. So the microphone is yours.
Thank you very much. Again, for the record, this is Eric Martin, Lewis County Public Works Director and County Engineer. And tonight I'll be speaking a little bit about this document, which is the First Amendment to the Interlocal Agreement regarding Lewis County Solid Waste Disposal District and flow control. Actually, I'll just be doing an introduction here real quick to why we're here, and then I'm going to turn it over to Steve Skinner, who's our solid waste manager, to talk about some of the details of this. But I believe that Steve or Tim, Elsie, or one of the members of our staff was down here last spring to kind of introduce this topic. This is a 25-year agreement that will be expiring in September of this year. And so we are going to all the cities that are members of the flow control, or of the disposal district, to try to get a renewal for the agreement with some minor modifications. So what I'll do now is I'll turn it over to Steve, and he can talk about what those modifications are. And then certainly we are available to entertain any other questions that the council may have.
Council and Mayor, as Eric pointed out, we were out here last spring to kind of bring some of this forward to all of the cities, the 9 incorporated cities within the county. And as you guys hopefully know, that the county does have the disposal district, which is in charge of all the solid waste within the county. And most of that back in '92, when the Centralia landfill was deemed a Superfund site, and mainly it was deemed a Superfund site because it is an unlined landfill. There hasn't really been any issues with it since it was deemed a Superfund site. And at one point in time, back in I think it was '97, it was removed off this. Let me back up just a sec. It could have been removed off the Superfund site, but I think all the powers at that point in time decided it's a whole lot easier to leave it there and deregulate some of the revenue bonds that the county had to submit to get enough money to repair or do any major upgrades that it needed. So it is still a Superfund site, but it is not on a real endangered list. There's nothing really serious with it. We, as a disposal district members, and the county takes care of all the funding mechanisms that for maintenance or monitoring, basically, and that's in part due to the city signing the flow control and becoming a member. The county took all the responsibility. So it is a real important thing for all the cities to become a part of the district and stay a part of the district, because it basically assumes, the district assumes all your responsibility. Not yours, but the cities from years past. So I'd like to think, and mainly because I work there, that the solid waste division has done really well, and I think it's worked really well with all the cities having the district. And like I said, I know that all the cities do have the flow control ordinances within their own, or set up years ago, and set up in '92. But so if there's any, I don't know if I think I kind of touched base on everything. I tried not to rehearse all these so that I'm always open to questions if there is any. So, but for the most part, I do believe it has worked really good. I know that this may be a little bit ahead of getting the horse ahead of the cart too far, but we are in the process of working out another agreement with the landfill closure group. The county, as I think some of you know that have been to, we do yearly executive advisory committee meetings in the fall. And we also have, let me go one at a time. The executive advisory, we're looking at the county's looking at taking over the monitoring and duties of the closed landfill. We as a district pay the city of Centralia to do the monitoring and testing. And some of the city employees, one of them is retiring next month. The other city employee is looking at retiring this fall. So I think they come to us, and we've been talking with them a great deal over the last year and a half, and a lot of meetings, getting Eric up to speed since Tim left. But anyway, we're looking at trying to take those duties over. Not that I don't know that it's going to save us any money, but I think we have the staff that's right there on site instead of the city staff having to come down from the water department. But anyway, that will be coming up in the near future. We will send a letter out and a document for your cities, city attorneys, for all of these to review. And we're, like I said, welcome for any questions that you might have.
Okay. Well, the council members are probably aware of the document you have in your hand. We did submit this to our city attorney for her review, and it's probably the first time in my 10 years term as mayor that we've done that. And
Right.
so, I would sadly remind the council that you urge representatives from the city to be at your meetings when they're held, and I think we've had a pretty pathetic track record of attendance.
Well, I know that Councilman Wilson has been there a couple of times over the years.
Yeah.
I was there last fall.
Yeah, you were.
Well-
I remember Mike being there.
See? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And we do. And,
so I'll change the word pathetic to sporadic.
There you go.
and Mayor, trust me, you were not as sporadic as some.
Well,
If that
all
makes
right.
you, that makes you feel any better. There are
Okay.
worse, trust me. And I'm not saying you guys are bad,
All right.
but we do a monthly disposal district meeting with the Board of County Commissioners too. And that is on the fourth Monday of every month at 11 o'clock. So feel free. If any of you happen to be in town, and it's an open public meeting, so you're more than welcome to attend.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. That's good to know. But what prompted me to say that about attendance is because our city attorney has generated a number of questions that I have a feeling some of our council members would like to ask, and that may reflect some of our ignorance based on our lack of participation. But I think we ought to ask a couple of questions if the council members are so bold as to do so. Yes.
Some of the questions we were able to get answered in the last couple of days since that packet was made, and so the yellow sheet has kind of, there's 3 questions there that she felt would be wise to ask.
Mm-hmm.
And so the
Thank
other
you for
questions,
clarifying.
I think we have pretty much answered, unless someone, you can answer.
So the first one that she asked, or that now I'm asking, what is the long-term or the long-range capital plan for dealing with solid waste?
We, as you all know, and we will bring that forward to the council probably in another 3 or 4 months, we have the solid waste comprehensive, it's a solid and hazardous waste comprehensive management plan that we must do, and it's a state regulated, set up by RCWs. And part of that as if, I think you guys, some of you guys know, I know Mayor Smith, we've been down here before doing wood chipping events and various recycling events.
It's been very good. We've been,
And a lot of the solid waste management plan deals with that because we get ecology funding. So without the funding from ecology, that would be, things like that would dry up. And ecology has cut our funding immensely the last 4 years. I think we're gonna get another probably $5 million cut off the CPG funding for the entire state. So we're down to about $200,000 over a 2-year period. It's a long story. They're through the Model Toxics Control Act that, and it comes from gas taxes basically. Whenever crude oil is really cheap, gas is cheap, the state doesn't get as much tax. So when they don't get as much tax, it doesn't go to the MOTCA accounts, what they call Model Toxics Cleanup Account. So all that hurts, and I'm sure there's a lot more things that the governor's putting the money toward versus ecology. I mean, I hear that from the ecology people, nobody's gonna admit it, but the scuttlebutt that they come to. So basically, but our long-term thing is we know that eventually, and 5 years ago, we planned on, we were saving to plan a new transfer station down on this end of the county. Be it along I-5, Vader area, Windlock area, somewhere along I-5, closer to the south end of the county. That hasn't been put on, it's not been put on a shelf, but it is on the back burner due mainly because of the economy being really bad. We don't have as many people moving into the county as we did even 5 years ago. So, I mean, it's still one of those things that we're watching, and we do have that listed in our comprehensive management plan as well. So I don't know if that answers all of those questions that you were looking for, Councilman Parsons, but hopefully. And Eric might have more. Feel free to chime in too if you.
I'll just say that Yeah, as Steve mentioned, the point being here is that as far as capital plan goes, that's something you're gonna see from us here shortly. You know, and if there's any of that information that you guys wanna see now, we can certainly try to come up with some kind of a summary for you, if that helps. The idea here with this plan though is that, you know, we do have a need to make sure that through the flow control agreements that those funds, and this was decided when we shut the landfill down, that those funds from throughout the county would help fund this transfer station and the one in Morton, to make sure we have revenue to do the things we need to do. And we do have, I think, do we have the actual tipping building that's in the capital plan for some point in the future to be replaced?
That has not been.
Okay.
We have not done that, but I mean, it's one of those things that we've talked through our solid waste advisory council or committee, and I think their consensus to the board was let's hold off until we start seeing growth again, and with growth means more tonnage coming in. With more tonnage coming in, it's more revenue, which would make sense, you know, to at that point in time expand our realm, if you would, or expand the buildings that we have and maybe build a new one further south here.
Okay.
So the only thing we've got right now the big thing that we do set aside money for every year is what we call our crane fund, and that's basically the pad mounted excavators that we have at the site. So we do have money that gets set aside every year to go towards those, so that what are we pricing them, every 10 or 15 years?
Yeah.
About 10 or 15 years we replace those, and so we do have a fund that we set aside for that. This next round of plan that you're going to see come out is going to start looking at some more long-term things, and you'll see that when it comes. So.
Well, I think one of the concerns that have arisen from our city attorney's comments is the length of time for the contract. She says that that's rather unusual, and it exposes communities like ours, small ones that are such limited in revenue, with low economic residents on fixed incomes. We could get locked into some technology that could be significantly more expensive 10 years down the road, and we're kind of stuck. Might there not be an option for little communities like ours to review our status in or participation every 10 years or something?
Possibly. We haven't explored those options, and we haven't been asked by any other communities. The crux of this agreement is that the city will maintain a flow control ordinance, and the citizens of Vader will then make sure that their garbage, either through curbside or through delivery to the transfer station by other means, that paying for that service will flow through the transfer station. So it shouldn't necessarily cost the city as an entity anything. It does make sure that when citizens dispose of their solid waste, those funds go through the disposal district, which we are all a part of. So if you want to think about it in such a way, Vader has a certain percentage, and Winlock has a certain percentage, and Morton has a certain percentage, and the county has a certain percentage, and we're all in this thing together, I guess, is really how it's set up. So
How, and maybe you guys, I'm new to this area, fairly new, but I know that Longview or Cowlitz County is a lot cheaper. What's the reason for that? Is there...
Mainly, the landfills are very, very hard to take care of and especially get permitted anymore. Now, Cowlitz County did buy the old Weyerhaeuser landfill. We had explored for several years working with Cowlitz County, and at that point in time, there is so many unknowns with that landfill because of all of the industrial waste that Weyerhaeuser dumped into it. And I know at this point in time, they're having some real issues still. I talked to a guy from Southwest Clean Air Agency, and they're still having a lot of issues because of the sheetrock that was dumped in that landfill and buried. And the sheetrock, as it gets wet and decomposes, makes hydrochloric acid. And I know there's some, I don't want to say anything bad about Cowlitz, but I know there's some real issues with that landfill. And that landfill, Weyerhaeuser approached Waste Connections, Waste Management, and Republic Service, which are the three largest garbage companies in the United States, and two of them, they're 2 and 3 worldwide, and neither of the three would even look at buying that landfill. And basically, their comments were the same thing, because of all the industrial waste that was dumped in that between the pulp mills. Everybody's afraid of it.
So basically what I think we're getting at is that's a landfill that may not be being used very much longer. But right now, they don't have to pay the hauling costs that Lewis County has to pay.
Okay.
So they're dumping stuff right into a landfill that's right there on site, whereas we have to take it, put it in the box, and then put it on a train, or starting April 1st, put it on a truck, and then it has to be trucked to a landfill in Roosevelt in April, we're going to start with a new company that's going to take it across the river over into Oregon. But yeah, so that's probably the biggest cost difference, and at some point in time that'll probably change for Cowlitz County. But I think what you need to consider is that that all of the cities and the county, all the cities in Lewis County and the county itself, have a certain amount of liability because the fact that we do have a Superfund site sitting up there, and because of the fact that in the past, all of the cities and all of the unincorporated county all contributed solid waste to that landfill. And so that's what sort of made you a part of the disposal district to start with. So there is a stake that Vader has in the disposal district and in that landfill. And so when you have your citizens then contribute to help maintain it, you're keeping it in good standing. So it's making sure that we're monitoring it correctly, we're taking care of that landfill as best we can, so it doesn't become a hazard and a huge liability to everyone, not just the county, but also the cities that have a stake in that. So that's sort of what this agreement tries to do, is to say, hey, we're all in this together, we all created this mess, if you want to call it that, and we need to make sure that it's maintained properly. And the county took that on in 1992, and as far as we're concerned, and we certainly want to demonstrate that to the city, but as far as we're concerned, we're doing a good job of taking care of it with the help of Centralia and other folks, and so we feel like it's working well, and we ask you to continue this.
And
That's sort of what we're looking for.
this is a lifetime. Like, there's no closing.
It's more than that.
That's forever.
It's
Yeah.
pretty much forever. I mean, it doesn't mean that, like Steve was saying before, it couldn't go off of the Superfund lifts at some point in time. And actually, there's evidence out there that it's I don't know what the right word is. It's becoming less of a hazard because a landfill like that produces methane gas, and so we have a flare station out there that siphons the methane gas off of the landfill, and then we'll actually ignite it to burn it and get rid of it into the air. And over the last 25 years, there's become less and less and less and less methane coming off it, and now there's hardly anything out there. So
We're down to burning like 12 hours, almost 12 to 15 hours a week. When that landfill first closed, it was both flare stations were burning 24/7. So I mean, and the same thing with our testing through ecology. We're down to do periodic reviews every 5 years. So ecology is just wrapping up the third 5-year periodic review. And they are down to, we're monitoring twice a year now, and it used to be monthly. So there hasn't really been any major hits, major issues with the testing, the groundwater, the gas wells, any of it. So that's a good sign. And that's, I think, a lot of why we, the county, are looking at taking over the monitoring from the city, or the maintenance of it and operations of it, because there's not much liability left there, which is a good thing. And the same with some of the other agreements that we will bring to the city in the next 6 months. Well, most of those are a 20 or 25-year agreement with the comprehensive management plan. And that was at Ecology's urging. Instead of coming to the cities every 5 years and bringing a management plan up, you guys going through it all, doing SEPA checks on it, they suggested we do a 20 or 25-year agreement. So we will still notify you every 5 years when we do our management plan. We just won't have to come out and you guys won't have to do the full-fledged. You can just send us a letter of approval. It'll be simpler and easier, I think, for everybody.
All right. Well, Jill, I know you had a question, I think.
Oh, well, I just wanted to make a comment because several times they've mentioned the flow control ordinance and that has something to do with it. I just wanted to explain that the flow control ordinance basically states that the flow of our garbage here in Vader will go to their transfer station and not somebody else's. And I didn't know if that was clear. Everybody, just to make sure everybody understood it. And I think the thing that kind of jumped out was, why are we suddenly not able to be removed from the district, whereas before we had an option or a way to terminate the agreement, where now there is no option to terminate the agreement. So that's kind of like, with the attorney, is like red flag, suddenly there's no termination agreement. And so I think that's kind of the biggest thing. And so being concerned about what the plans are in the future for the plants and for how the solid waste is going to be handled. And is it, prudent and economical, and is it going to make sense for the citizens of Vader to do it? And so far, I mean, everything's been fine, and we haven't had any reason to think that anything crazy is going to happen. But she was saying there's a lot of new technology, especially in solid waste right now, and that things are changing kind of rapidly, and people are working throughout the world on new technologies and stuff. And so kind of having council be able to be aware of what you guys are looking at, and if we're going to be tied in for 25 years without any, wiggle room, if something goes wacko, then, that's kind of, I think, where we're coming at. So I don't know if you guys have any ideas on that as far as if there's any new technology or anything you're looking at, or if we're just still considering busing it somewhere and doing that.
It would probably be a continued effort to truck it to a major landfill. As far as there is several new technologies out there, but most of them, and a lot of them are real prevalent in Europe for making gas, and they can burn garbage and compress it. And there's I can't remember the term, but it can actually make fuel out of old garbage. But those technologies are so expensive. I know Waste Management over at their Arlington, Oregon plant had a digester over there, and they were, instead of disposing of it in the garbage and burying it, they were planning on about $80 a ton to process it, and normally their tipping rate is 35, I believe, 33 or 35. So it is, I mean, there is technology out there, but the other thing we have to look at, this is a small county. We don't, and I had this discussion with the lady today as far as recycling. We don't get enough recycling in this county to have a huge plant that'll sort it, process it, press it, grind it up. I mean, you can make diesel fuel, biofuel, and everything out of plastic. But those things cost a lot, and we just don't get enough in our county. And even if we were to get Cowlitz and Thurston and Grays Harbor and several others together, that's still, I mean, you need huge markets, Seattle, Portland type conglomerates together to make enough revenue stream. And I know there was a company a couple years ago that tried to go out to the old, you guys are probably all familiar with the Transalta, the coal mine in Centralia. They tried to buy a section of that to set up a gasification plant. And it's so expensive. It just, nobody was interested in really carrying it forward. They wanted the county to pitch in $200,000 or $300,000 to get started on the ground floor, and I think the commissioners looked at that and thought, there's no way that we're going to allow or agree to that. So I mean,
Okay.
Other than, I guess, Eric and I's word saying, I know that we watch things carefully for the county as far as expenses. If there was really good technology out there, we would probably be looking at it more. I know that doesn't probably satisfy the city attorney.
She wasn't pushing to look at, but she just is aware that there's a lot and didn't know what the county's plan is, and none of us could really answer for her what the county's, thoughts were. And is the county looking at something big like that, or are they looking at continuing doing things the way that they've been doing it, which would keep the cost really comparable to where they are now? And they're just trying to get an idea, and she's not pushing one or the other, but just curious about.
Yeah, and we can give her some more information about that comprehensive plan that we're working on.
She thinks council is the one that needs to know that, and she just has more experience than the rest of us do, and so.
No, and when we went out last spring, that was sort of our kind of initial question and answer period, and I wasn't there, but what I was told was that what we heard a lot of, hey, it's working, our citizens are happy with the way the service is working, and we don't want to have to deal with the liability of that landfill, so we're fine to just continue on and keep things the way they are. So that's part of the reason why we brought it forward with as little change as we did, because that's sort of what we heard from the cities. But certainly we're open to try to answer some more of those. We're not lawyers, so but if there's legal questions out there that we need to have answered, we can certainly go back and do the best we can to try to answer those for you if that's what the council needs.
Well, all right. Thank you for.
One real quick question.
Yeah.
Did you say, it's my old ears, super fund?
Fund.
Fund. I
Super
didn't hear the
fund,
D,
yeah.
and I thought, what a weird
not super
thing.
fun.
That's what I was like, why did they call it that?
I think
And then,
it was just a huge pot of money, and so they called it the super fund.
how many acres is this?
Oh, you would ask me that. I think it's
Ballpark.
forgive me, but I believe it's 167.
Can we spray our waste out there?
Our effluent.
Boy, that's a long ways to pipe it.
That might be, yeah.
30-mile pipe.
If you guys can afford to pipe it up there, then let's talk. Get that part figured out first, and then we'll talk.
Good answer.
Yeah.
I do know that we're working really on that same note, really closely with the city of Centralia on their wastewater treatment plant. We're taking, and I know their system is a little different, and I think they use lime and pasteurize it and everything, but we're taking a lot of wood debris, ground up wood debris out there, and they're making Class A compost with it. It's very good stuff for lawns.
Well, and I think, Kale was telling me that they were even running some scientific tests about growing vegetables in. They wanted to see, what the uptake was for certain, trace elements, or, see if there's antibiotics or other, pharmaceuticals or anything like that might get taken up into vegetables. And so they were trying to do some studies to see if people could actually use this compost in their gardens if they wanted to, but obviously they wanted to make sure it was safe, so, yeah.
Interesting.
Yes.
Scary. I don't know, interesting or scary?
I think that's why they wanted to do the testing.
Yeah.
In another county.
Yeah, it's that yuck factor.
Oh, City of Centralia was doing it, but I mean,
Yeah.
right now, I don't think they're recommending using it for gardening. No.
Well, okay, I think you've given us enough to give a wise action onto the next agenda item. So, thank you for that presentation. I'm going to anticipate we don't have any public comment.
We don't.
Okay, all right. And with that, I would suggest we proceed with our official business, which is item 1. Council will consider the amendment to the solid waste interlocal agreement. If you've had a chance to read the documents relating to that topic.
I guess what we're looking for here is just a consensus on whether council feels comfortable with this agreement, and if you are, then you could, direct the clerk to put together a resolution for signing the agreement that would be approved at the next council meeting, or whether you had more questions that you wanted answered, or you needed more time to think about it, or kind of what your direction is on the ILA at this point.
Well, I read it twice, and it refers to the actual agreement, and it talks about pages this and that of the other agreement. And I'd like to see the actual agreement, so I know what it's talking about.
I have it in.
I'm sure you do.
I have
And I'm
it
sure it's gonna be
I have it
riveting.
because it's quite thick, and I didn't think you all wanted 100 pages worth
Yeah.
of 2 different ILAs, so.
I'd like to come take a look at it before I voted on it.
Okay.
Other council members supportive of that perspective? Get a chance to look at it before placing it for a vote? Okay. And with that obvious consensus, we'll proceed to that end.
So I just want to make sure I understand, the other 2 council members are okay with it at this point, the way it is, moving forward with it? Or you want to have more time to deliver?
I'm okay moving forward with it. I'm okay with Joe taking his time and
Okay.
looking through the whole
I'm
document.
just trying to decide if I should have a resolution ready at the next council meeting, if you want to have that too. It doesn't mean you have to decide then, but it means that you could if you wanted, if you were ready.
Is there a deadline or a timeline that, a sense of urgency?
It expires in September,
Yeah, so we have a little bit of time, yeah.
but, you know, we've got these other things we're trying to work on, and so we wanted to make sure we got this one wrapped up as soon as we could. But obviously, you know, we're not,
Sure.
we want you guys to feel comfortable with it, so that's the important thing.
Yeah, and I think 2 weeks would be, I mean, if you do that the next council meeting, and if you have more questions, Joe, seriously, if you read through it and have more questions, call my office.
Okay.
And I think we've emailed back and forth, to talk back and forth, so, I
Yeah.
mean, I'll answer any other questions that you might have if you come up with that. And Joe, I don't know if we have to have a resolution, I think there was a signature page for the city.
Yeah,
council.
you guys don't, the county doesn't require a resolution, but in order for the mayor to sign anything, we're recommended to have a resolution authorizing his signature.
Okay, no.
So it's just our internal
That's
resolution.
perfect.
It seems like it's kind of a status quo. I mean, it's the same thing that we've been
Yeah.
just continuing on, and
think you're
it's
right.
kind of like we don't have a choice not to continue on because we're part of.
I don't know that anybody's ever tried to exercise a choice. So
Yeah,
it's, we go along to get along.
Yeah.
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 Hopefully there's not a giant Guido with a violin. The East Coast is famous for.
Yeah, hopefully not.
I think if the city council wanted to explore something like that, we'd probably have to talk to the attorneys and
Yeah.
figure out what that means, because I really don't know. I'll be honest.
Well, anyway, my sense would be that we should have a resolution prepared for our next meeting in the event that it would be appropriate.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank
and with that, then we will proceed with our next item on the agenda. And we thank you both, and you don't have to hang around for the remainder of this.
Thank you.
You guys have the rest of the evening, hopefully it's great.
We will be. Thank you
Thank
very much,
you.
Steve.
Appreciate the time, thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. Item number 2, council to consider contract extensions for item A, resolution 02-2017 for building official. You probably discerned that these are pretty pro forma.
I would like to make a note, we put these on there, hoping that we'd have all 3 of the extensions agreed to by the plant, or by the different companies and signed and back here. I've only had 1 signed back so far. They've all agreed to it, but I've only actually received 1 signature. So the only one that we would really recommend you approving at this time is the building official one, because we do have his back with the signature. And then the other 2, I anticipate any time, and so we'll have to bump those to the next meeting. Unless you guys want to approve them contingent upon the signatures coming. However you want to do it, either table it or do it contingent.
Yep, it's entirely up to the council.
Well, I'll make a motion on the building official. Townsend Associates has been great so far.
It really is
Just-
amazing.
didn't want anything more. So, I move to approve resolution 02-2017, adopting the building official contract extension as written.
Okay, Mr. Shai submitted a motion to the council as read. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Daly. Any council commentary?
I'm gonna, I guess what I wanted to say is,
That was turn.
I called these guys to do, I'm dealing with them right now on a pole barn. And it took me 2 weeks and Jill to call them for them to get a hold of me to come and do an inspection. And the guy that they sent out for the inspection was, he was talking about his trip to Vegas. He didn't know who I was at all, but he was talking about his trip to Vegas to get trained. He's excited about doing that. And he, not that I want him to look that deep at anything, but he was kind of like, wow, okay, this looks great. And that was about it. And I said, so what's my next step? Do you just write it off? And he goes, well, I'm not sure. I'll call you back in a couple days. And he called me back in a couple days and said, when you're totally done, then call us back. It's like, well, it's a pole barn. What do you want? Type of a thing. And so I'm very specific because I was there, and it's my building that I'm dealing with. But I hate to see that type of, I guess, lack of professionalism for anyone else.
This is such a tricky thing. I tell you, you don't want them too strict, and you don't want them too inept. I tell you, if it were me, I'd probably enjoy having somebody like that, because I've been a victim of inspectors that have been just the opposite.
Yes.
And so, hey, but I don't want to misinterpret your observation. But
No,
like
I
it.
just
like
think that the
Townsend.
thing was the biggest issue for me was that I called and I didn't get anything
2
back
weeks.
for 2 weeks.
Well, now that's kind of unusual.
And so,
That is a bit unusual, however, they know that they're not supposed to do anything unless I call them. Because the city pays for it, and if a resident calls and says something, they don't necessarily jump unless I've already authorized it, because again, the
So
bill
you
comes
didn't
to
call
us.
City Hall
So
first?
if you called them before I did, they may not have responded because of that. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not
I'm not-
positive that that's a situation.
I don't know how it all happened. I just remember I got the phone number from you guys and then I called them. So, but anyway,
Well, maybe if that's accurate, we could ensure that the residents who need those inspections, it's clear to them that they need to run it through City Hall. That might solve that problem, because we don't need
Sure.
that long of delay.
Also, it was, if I remember, it was around the holidays.
it was around the holiday time.
And I know he was gone, and then he came back, and then he was sick, and so, I mean, I'm not saying
Yeah.
it could have been a number of things, but
It's definitely not a deal breaker. It was just a
Observation.
observation
Yeah.
of,
that you
So-
don't want it to be a pattern. And
Yeah.
I agree
So.
completely.
Okay.
So,
Well,
it
all
gives
right.
us something to watch for. And he's usually very responsive if I call him and have an issue with something. He's usually pretty responsive with what we need, so, but that's good information to have.
Well, this is the sort of feedback we want when we discuss these motions. Any other thoughts, concerns? All right, with that, let's put it to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay. Thank you, Joe. And that, now with regard to the other two, I'm sensing that the council would like to hold off on approval or submission of motions.
until we get them signed.
Okay, all right then. That takes care of item 2. Update on drainage near Annan Road. This It's an agenda item that we wanted to put on here in anticipation of some feedback from like we agreed, I was going to get hold of Mr. Parsons and Mr. Daly, and we'd do a little walking tour of the challenge, which happened yesterday for your info. And I had to leave at the 30-minute mark, so I kind of missed any summation that took place. But did the two council members present to reach any conclusions that you'd like to make a matter of public record, or for Mr. Shy's edification?
It would be nice to see if we have some type of plans.
Yeah, I talked to John today, and he was gonna pull up the manhole cover just to look to see like the direction of the pipe that we were talking about up at the corner of Main and 506. And he said he found out very little from doing that, just that the pipe appeared to be going in the direction that, you know, we kind of thought it was. So,
Downhill.
As far as putting any dye or anything into and finding out where it's coming out of, he hasn't started doing anything in that at all. So we decided and discovered that the whole drainage side on the north side of Highway 506, above or east of the railroad tracks, is the whole ditch between for the runoff is pretty blocked by grass and railroad ties and railroad iron and
Trees.
growing trees and things like that. And we don't know if that's our ditch or if it's the railroad's ditch. So we kind of up in the air on that as far as who's responsible for the maintenance of that area there. But it's pretty much as far as we got
The city
as
has never
far as the tour. So,
maintained, well, we have put the lid on it, that
but as far as the ditching systems, like up through here that feed
On
that
the east
vault
side,
system.
yeah.
all from north and south.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. I think that's on railroad property.
Yeah. So, plenty of issues, and John's wrapping his head around them. You know, as far as like rotten culverts, just in that whole general area, there's a lot of dilapidation going on. So, he's, like I say, he's trying to wrap his head around the scope of the whole thing. So,
Well, one takeaway I had for Joe's information, our objective was to see if we might be able to identify where there's a blockage that's preventing water from being taken away from your business, and input through the big pipe that sticks over the Olaqua on the south side of the bridge as you go across. And we've gone over that a number of times. I don't think we discovered anything new, but we're still as mystified as we always have been. But we thought that wouldn't it be wonderful if we had our own scoping camera system so we just see what's going on.
well, and I talked to John today and said that, you know, maybe a GoPro on an RC car down that tube, because he wants to like crawl out the tube and look in it. And I said, well, the mayor said to have fun with it, so RC car. And he said, I'll put in my request for an RC car here soon. So.
Well, that sounds fun.
They actually make a thing just like
Something
that.
like that, yeah.
Big got tracks.
Tracks, yeah.
So if it flips over, it still drives. But
I was thinking of how you could troubleshoot something like that. Maybe you could partner with the fire department and have them purge some fire hydrants into the storm drain and see if the flow comes out where you expect it to come out.
that wouldn't be a bad
That's a
idea.
good idea.
If you needed a lot of water to test it out.
Well, the main one, the other thing that I think that we should do is talk with the PUD since that's when the issue started, after they did that, punch that line through. And to me, that totally makes sense, because I used to work on one of those bore machines, and as it's going, you don't know what you're going through. You know where it is, but you don't know what you've gone through. And if the water is coming out, it's still coming out a little bit, but not like you said.
It's the
used to
same when
be.
it rains and when it don't rain. It's
Yeah.
always the same. So, yeah,
And so it might be a thing to talk to Pat and maybe have them dig up that area and see if they hit it. Or maybe they have
I'm sure they would have a scope.
a scope that they
before
can
they
go up,
bring
because it's
in
not very
manpower.
far. It's like 150 feet or
Yeah.
something like that from where they are, that they could.
It'd be less than that, I'm sure. Probably 75 feet.
Yeah. So,
Well, I would anticipate
And with
they'd
the
be less
request of
than
the, from the
enthusiastic.
city, I think that they would, be more apt to,
I suspect
come
so.
and take a look at it.
Yeah, well, we could contact PUD and see if they'd be happy to do that. But anticipating that they'd say no, if we had our own equipment, then we can do it. Or we could get a contractor out to do it. Pardon my voice, I do have a sore throat, and so I've been battling it. But I do think we want to get to the bottom of it. And hopefully in the long run, we can resolve the drainage problems for that business. I don't anticipate the railroad's going to do anything. They haven't done it in our previous efforts. So I guess that's the update.
so is the ditch on the east side of the railroad, is that the railroad's ditch? Or is that our
Yes.
ditch?
The one that's running north to south
Running north to south, parallel
on the
East
east
side.
side.
on this side of the tracks, yep.
Yeah, all of that is railroad property.
Okay.
Yep, they don't even want you standing on it, let alone doing anything with it. So, yeah, if you park a car there and they see you, they'll come ask
Yeah,
you to
they'll call the
leave.
sheriff.
Mhm.
It's in there.
Yeah, they tracked her down last year. End season.
So, yeah, it's what, it's a sticky
So,
situation.
since that's the case, then the backing up of everything, because it can't flow through there with their, literally, their railroad pile is just slid into the ditch. And so that makes them liable, in my eyes, for everything above that backing up.
It's part of the problem for sure.
And so
Yeah,
maybe instead of asking, maybe we should be a little bit more forceful with them. And
right. We've tried everything but that. If we had a Caterpillar, I'd go out there because it does impact those to the north of that water box. Yep, ask Floyd Karn what his opinion is about it. He'll tell you. So, but that's a conversation probably, given the time constraints, because we do have our city attorney waiting for a phone call. Yeah, we've wrestled with this. In my opinion, well, paving is a different topic. So,
Number 5.
wait, one quick point though, last. I do think we should research what the cost would be to get a camera, and or rent it and see if we could scope that. Wouldn't that be reasonable? It is is impacting a business that is,
Well, we know it, didn't you talk to the people who are out here scoping for a different
did.
reason? It was $400 an hour.
yeah. Mhm. And they have a wonderful device. I watched them for almost 2 hours, and it was quite good. So, well, that's a price, isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah, it wouldn't. It'd probably take them less than an hour.
Yeah, you think.
They get the access to it.
I have I have to call Pat tomorrow. Should I just,
Overmeyer at the county.
yeah,
POD.
should I talk to him about that? Is that all right for me to do?
Yeah, the mayor would authorize that, absolutely.
Okay, I'll
Plus,
talk to
the council
him
members
tomorrow
have
and
heartburn
see.
over that, but, okay.
All we
there's
can
2
ask
things.
is,
Okay.
all we can do is ask.
Okay.
How many times, I mean, it seems like in the last 3 years I've been sitting here, we've talked about getting camera systems a few times now for different things.
Yeah, we have.
Seems like it might be a handy piece of equipment if it's not
I'd resonate
cost
with that.
prohibitive. I mean, you rent it 3 times, you're $1,200.
We've preliminarily been told to get a system would cost about $10,000.
Oh my gosh.
But I'm not
And
so sure.
training on top of it.
Yeah.
But that's a brand new one, so I don't know if I haven't looked in
Yeah.
to see what different kinds there are.
Well, let me tell you.
I had a 60-foot bore scope when I had my
Oh.
duct cleaning company, and it cost me $500. And it had video, and it was waterproof, so I could go. But it was only 60 feet long.
Yeah. Well, tell you, one of the things that I've discovered here, to add to that thought, is that about once every 2 or 3 years we get a root ball, and every time we've had to deal with that, we're out $1,200, and that device that they had yesterday, it would go 200 feet, and it's got this water pressure. It's got 2 jets that come out of it, and it will eat its way through a 2x4,
Wow.
when it's properly run, and it'll let you watch as it does it. And that device would be worth its weight in gold. So, but that may be the $10,000 variety. But if we can find one for $2,000,
Is that something that if we had, we could offer Winlock, Toledo?
yeah. But I'm not sure that RCW, it would be nice to
I don't
make some
think
revenue
we
off
can- I don't think we can loan it.
Come on, it's America. Not loan it.
Yeah, to
Rent
rent
it.
it. Yeah. But
We could charge for services.
yeah, they think there are constraints for a public entity to get in the business of doing it. But
There's specialized training that would have to go with it as far as a person goes.
Yeah, you
But
could
you
just
know
rent
what?
it to
No,
anybody.
that's what I'm saying is
Yeah.
with Winlock there and Toledo there, and I'm sure they're having the same issues.
They could hire
Oh, I
us just
see.
like we could hire the county
Right,
to do
right.
something. They could hire us in theory.
I get
So
your
that
point.
would-
Yeah.
Yeah,
What if
they'd
wanted
call
to
us
throw-
and John, we could send John over there and make, that guy's charging $400 an hour. We could charge $3 and
Gotcha.
make money.
Well, research.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, good. I know we're flopping over here.
Mayor, can I
Yes.
interrupt? I know that you guys wanted to put 5 and 6 next, but Jennifer was anticipating us between 6:30 and 7.
Oh, boy.
And so I'm wondering if we can go ahead and do the executive session now,
Yeah,
and then come back after the executive session and do the other 2 items.
I would agree with that. So then at this point, with that action approved, I would adjourn this meeting temporarily pursuant to the guidelines stipulated in RCW 42.30.110, parenthesis 1I. And I would estimate that it would probably take about 10 minutes to engage in this executive session. So I would dictate, unless there's an objection by the council. So, and we'll begin at 7:05 p.m.
So
So
we'll be back
reconvene at
7:15.
7:15. Reconvene our official city council. We will reconvene our city council meeting at 7:28. I think, and no decisions that were made in the course of that executive session. So with that, I think that I don't know that there's much need for any further discussion. There could be some
Well, at
action.
some point, we need to know what we're gonna do with these, because right now, we're just sitting, so I guess we,
I would like to discuss the particulars of each situation with you in person, since it's more of an executive action. And
okay,
then I know we might lose 2 weeks, but
that's okay.
okay. All right, then. Unless there's any aggravation on the part of the council members, I will suggest that we proceed with the next item on our agenda, item 5. Let's see.
Item 5 was the park board vacancy.
Ah, yes, okay. That's too many papers. All right, item 5, park board vacancy and appointment. Well, hopefully you've had a chance to read the letter, short notice, but we try to respond as quickly as we can on such things. The individual who's expressed interest to me personally, participating on the park board, is her name is Brianna Hansen, and she happens to be the spouse of Brandon Hansen, who's on the park board.
No.
And there's no particular constraint against having 2 members of the same family. What prompted her to participate is that her husband's work schedule has been problematic here of late. We've had him on Saturdays, and now he can't make it, and so we're experimenting. To make a long story short, though, when he can't be there, she could be. And she is getting a degree in education and getting with a specialty in grant writing. And she hopes to have that finished in the next year and a half. And she would love to be on the park board because she would love to cut her teeth on writing grant applications for the city of Vader in furtherance of development of our parks. So she's young, energetic, articulate, intelligent, and community-oriented, which I've articulated in the letter. So my sense is they own a home. It's a lovely home in the city. I would strongly encourage you to confirm Brianna Hansen to serve as a member of the Vader City Park Board. Oh, and she wanted to be here, of course, but husband had to work, and so she's got a baby, and she couldn't. She wanted to be here in the worst way, but she can be at our next park board meeting on Monday night at 6. So there, yes.
I wondered if you wanted to mention why there was a vacancy.
I already did. Before, I'm sorry, I probably should have mentioned it as public record. So, Steve Crone, former chairman and a member of the park board, submitted a letter of resignation, which I accepted and is now on the city file. And so that's what's prompting this. So with that, I'd submit that recommendation for council action.
Well, make a motion to add Brianna Hansen to our park board.
Okay, the motion submitted by Mr. Shai to approve Brianna Hansen as a new member of the Vader City Park Board. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Parsons. Any concern? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. I thank you very much for that. I'm excited about your involvement. Last item, number 6, Resolution 05-2017, a voluntary correction agreement submitted to the city by Ms. Ricker. Now I can clarify to you that she has submitted a letter in which she's indicated that she's going to comply essentially with the ordinance and that she'll remove the old RVs and trailer that's been such a blight on the neighbors to the north by the end of February, and that she would then remove the building residence by the end of July. Or is it the 1st of July?
End of July.
End of July. And she was very respectful, civil, and impressed with the city's efforts to improve the community. And she is a very, very, very responsive property owner. So there was other communications involved in her conversation with us, but I think I would defer that for future council meetings.
You might clarify that she's the daughter of the owners.
Okay.
The owner, Gerald, is passed away, and his wife, Virginia, is infirmed, and Shana has come from across the country to take care of her and found this situation, and so she's trying to help get it taken care of, which is why it's in the state that it's in. So she's been very apologetic and just embarrassed that their property looks like that, and so she's...
And they're not living there?
No one's been living there for many years, I don't know how long. But.
If anybody asks you that if we're making progress in cleaning up our community through these efforts and ordinance and enforcement, you can point to that and several others as evidence that it may be slow, but it's making a difference. So I would invite council action at this time.
I'll move to approve resolution 05-2017, adopting the voluntary correction agreement with Shauna Ricker as written and authorized by mayor to sign said document.
Thank you. Mr. Parsons has submitted a motion as read. So do we have a second for that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Daly. Any commentary? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Excellent. The motion is carried. Well, okay, that concludes the official agenda. So without any further comment, I declare this council meeting closed at 7:37 p.m.